Well, welcome everyone to today's session. Before we jump on any further, I would like to, of course, acknowledge and pay respects to the traditional custodians on the land of which you all meet today, and acknowledge elders past, present, and emerging. But yeah, today we've got a great session. We try to do this one every year, do a bit of a retroactive and look at the campaign period that was. So we're going to walk through some stats today, which would be pretty cool, looking at what the latest trends we've seen in the Australian graduate recruitment market for January up until end of May-ish or so. For those of you who aren't familiar with Prospel, and hopefully I think most of you should be, but those of you who aren't familiar with Prospel, our mission is to help all students get the best start to their career. We run a whole bunch of different jobs boards across the country, including, of course, the Australia Prospel site and Mumba with partnership with universities and societies like NGOs Australia and the like, and also a whole bunch internationally as well. I can also see, thanks to everyone who's jumped in, the chat is disabled, so bear with me as I fix that one up. But as I'm doing that, I might introduce today's speakers. Those of you who haven't heard from us before, we've got Grant, who is our Head of Employer Partnerships here at Prospel, and myself, Sam, Account Director. Again, I think you probably all have heard us in some way, shape, or form in the past. Fortunately or fortunately for you, I'm not quite sure. But yeah, that's us for today, your two speakers. Also, before we go any further, just want to give you a quick heads up. We'll be doing a prize draw at the end of today's session. So for everyone who registered, we're going to be chucking your name in a hat, drawing out two winners today. So make sure you stick around till the end because we'll be drawing that right at the end, and only people who are still in the chat will get their prize. So that's a bit of a carrot to stick around. But anyway, I'll throw back to you, Grant, to jump into the next setting, and I will also fix up this chat for us all. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, Sam. Yes, hi everyone, and thanks for the warm introduction, Sam. For those who don't know me, so I'm the Head of Employer Partnerships here at Prospel, and yeah, really keen to dive into some of the application trends that we've seen in the first sort of 4 or 5 months this year. So overall, the really good news, application numbers are up year on year. So we've seen quite a significant increase in the total number of applications, not just this year, but in between 2024 and 2022, as you can see in this data here. In 2022, that was somewhat affected a bit by international students not being in the country and therefore not being able to apply for jobs. So there's a bit of a dip in that period, but since then the market's really bounced back, and very pleased to say, or share rather, that applications are up by 15% compared with this time last year. So that's so far we've sent through, well, there's been just over 234,000 students applying for jobs via the Prospel sites, and this is data just in Australia alone. Actually, as just a quick footnote, we're doing the same webinar but for New Zealand next week as well. But this, yeah, so it's just Aussie data. And yeah, so as I said, overall, really good news. Now, if we dive into what's happening on a month-by-month basis, March still continues or remains to be the peak season per se when it comes to students applying for jobs. So we actually saw an increase in application numbers in the month of March. They were up 26% in 2024 compared with 2023. So you can see that's the big yellow or orangey type spike in March. What's interesting as well, and we'll touch on this a little bit later on, is that still throughout the year, we run these webinars in May or June every year. So we don't tend to focus too much or do like a bit of a snapshot on the market towards the back end of the year. But it is interesting to note that in August last year, there was actually just as many applications coming through from students to our employer partners in August than there was in the month of April. So really good opportunity perhaps for those who are doing like top-up campaigns, or we know there's a lot of employers have moved across to hiring in the back end of the year, sort of opening up applications in July, closing them in August and September. It's still a really good opportunity for to post jobs and get a lot of applications in that period of the year as well. Now, if we look at the number of students actually using Prosper, it's pretty interesting. So it doesn't actually line up with the previous slide. So we've actually kind of seen a flattening of the number of students that are actually using Prosper, so that these are like unique students that are jumping onto Prosper and searching and applying for work. That's pretty flat year on year. Again, you can see that they're kind of on the platform year on year. We do know that students go on to apply for a job with Prosper or via the Prosper site, and then they come back in the later months of the year as well when they're going through like recruitment rounds and to look at the reviews and the day in the life stories. And we've got heaps of CVE tips and tricks and that on the platform as well. So that's kind of why there's a steady stream of students on the platform across the year. But yeah, it is interesting to note that the total number of unique students on the platform hasn't increased, but there was that big spike in application numbers. So it's a good reminder as well for those who have got like the content, like the grad reviews and that, make sure that it's up to date, because as the students are going through recruitment rounds and through the interview process right now, they're coming back to your profile and looking at that data, and which obviously equips them with their application and putting their best foot forward. So if we kind of look at what's driving the change, really the big change in the last year or two has been there's actually three times more individual job searches in March between 2024 and 2022. So in 2022, which is that light blue bar on the month of March, you can see there was around 300,000 unique job searches in that month a couple of years ago. This year, it's closer towards 1 million job searches in the month of March. So the depth of the student job search has really increased the last couple of years. So kind of vision it that they go onto Prosper, they search for a job saying that they're an engineering student or a science grad, and they're looking for a job, and maybe a couple of years ago they're looking at the first 1 or 2 pages. Now they're actually doing more and more job searches. Not only are they just scrolling through more and more pages, but they're also doing more unique searches and looking at different jobs within different industries as well. And that's a couple of reasons as to why there's been that big spike in the last couple of years. So what does this all mean? Overall, the application rate, so what we mean by the application rate is the total number of applications a student makes, has increased by 33% this year in comparison with last year. So again, what that means is in 2022, we saw an average number of applications per user or per student being around the 7 mark. Last year, that increased to 9. And this year, that's increased to just around to the 12 mark. So students are applying for, not only are they looking for more jobs, but they're also applying for more jobs as well. So you might ask, like, what are students applying for? Like, what type of jobs are they applying for? So in this graph, you can see that internships are interestingly becoming more and more popular. We're seeing a bit of a trend where students are prioritizing internships and just like their career readiness earlier on in their degree. We've seen that trend over the last few years with the AEG data, noting that I think it's like a quarter of students are looking for internships and grad jobs before the end of their first year of university. So it's great to see, and it's also, I'm sure this resonates with a lot of people, that students really want to gain that early careers experience working for various companies, doing internship in not just one company, but multiple, because they know that gives them a bit of a leg up when they're applying for graduate positions. So one thing that we've introduced at Prosper over the last year or two has been the concept of pre-registers. So it is, sounds like what it is, which is students can basically pre-register for a job. So when the job's not open for applications yet, they can still pre-register. We actually send the student some information when the job actually opens, so they can go on to apply. And again, the good news is that these jobs have become more and more popular year on year. So we've seen a spike in interest in students pre-registering for opportunities, and we'll imagine that will grow over time as well. Now, if we have a look at the applications by industry sector, so accounting is still the most popular sector when it comes to students applying for work. As you can see, the big yellow spike, there's been around 28,000 applications from students for that accounting sector. Now, that's not to say that these are just all accounting grads. There's IT grads that are applying for in the accounting sector, engineering, a whole breadth of students. And then that's closely followed by technology, management consulting is a little bit behind tech, and it's kind of winds down from there. But you can kind of see like overall, there's a pretty distinct trend that overall applications are up across multiple sectors, actually across nearly all sectors. The one or two that have slipped back a little bit is law and transport and logistics. There's a couple there, but again, there's a little bit of noise there because for law, for example, there hasn't been the opening of clerkships and grad jobs yet. So it's pretty much on par with previous years. I think for this next section, I'm going to hand back to you, Sam, on what students are searching for.
Thanks, Grant. All right, what are students searching for? So this is actually going to be some new slides this year because we've actually added a new feature to the platform in the last 6 months, actually, which I'm not sure if anyone's actually noticed on the platform yet. But for context, everyone, students can now actually type and put in a keyword when they're searching for jobs, which is actually something, I mean, now that we have it, it feels like it was always there because, well, wouldn't it be? But historically, we actually didn't give students the opportunity to search by keywords, type in what they're looking for and the like. They just were able to look for, are they looking for grad or intern or, and what degree they've got as well. So we've added a lot more flexibility for students to search this year, but in particular because of the ongoing rise of students being interested in particular roles, really wanting to tailor the sort of opportunities they're going to work for. So with that in mind, we actually launched this keyword search feature at the beginning of the year, which has been very well received by students. And also, for the purpose of today, it gives us some interesting insight into data in terms of explicitly what students are searching for. So we've got a couple of slides in here looking at the top 10 most searched by keyword terms for a variety of different student degrees. So starting with business, out in front is marketing, interestingly, followed by finance, followed by accounting, even data pulls in there too. We've got a couple of different roles that feature in there too, such as consulting, business analyst, HR, investment banking is a particular sector that students are interested in. We've also got the term winter, which we'll see in a tick, pops up a little bit. Going back to the slide that Grant mentioned earlier about what type of roles students are applying to, it does feel like there's a lot of interest in internships and explicitly winter internships as well. We haven't seen summer pop in there too much. It feels like there's a bit of urgency to where they want to work. Obviously with winter now, according to Melbourne's temperature map, it's apparently on us. So business students, up next we've got engineers, yep. So leading front, mechanical engineering, data pops up again, electrical, mining, software, all interestingly that mining, which has historically been a degree type which has short supply, is actually popping up ahead of the likes of civil, which has always been one of the leading degree majors that students are coming out of. We've definitely seen a ongoing decline in the number of students graduating from civil engineering degrees, and I think while this is only 1 year's worth of data, I think the keywords definitely started to match that. And once again, what do you know? Winter pops up, as does vacation. Up next, we've got IT, data. Everyone, students are looking for data. Data pops up once just as data, then again as data science, software engineering up there, business analyst again, data analyst once more time. We've got our first employer referenced in a top 10 search. No big surprises of who that is. IT and Canva. What a shock there. Winter, again, analyst, even machine learning popping up there. It's a bit of a rise of AI and the like. I wouldn't be surprised to see AI pop up as an ongoing search in the future years as well. But it's an interesting trend there. Up next, we have, I believe, got law. Yep, law pops up a fair bit. Clerkship. What do you know? Winter internship again, legal, lawyer, environmental. BDO pops up, another employer mentioned. An accounting firm as well, which is, they've got law roles, but interesting that they're the first employer up there. It's a bit of a shock. And even HR pops up a fair bit with legal students too. Some interesting searches there. Definitely, I think that the second point is why it's really important for any of the law firms in the room, why we have pre-registers up for your clerkships in advance of the campaign, right? Like if I'm a student searching in March, clerkships don't open up until June, July. So why it's really important we have your pre-registers up on the platform so students can express their interest, and when applications do open, be notified about it as well. So, I mean, interesting there. What we got next? Science, environment, winter again, even HR pops up, interestingly. Data, what a shock, pops up once more. I mean, law is the only one that hasn't popped up for. Marketing in there, which is interesting. Geology, bit of, again, a mix of roles and degrees. It's the key thing here. Finally, this is an interesting slide, I think. The top 10 most searched for employers on the platform. Not necessarily the most applied to employers on the platform, or most popular in terms of views, but the ones that students, when they're on the homepage, show me this organization, this is the top 10. ANZ, number 1, Canva, number 2, BHP, KPMG, PwC, Deloitte, EY, the big 4, right up there, GHD, Telstra, Coles. Not a huge surprising cohort here, but interesting, a mix of many different sectors as well. And for those who are particularly, for our employer clients on the call, if you are interested in finding out a little bit more about how you've gone in terms of keyword searching, what volume of students are actually looking for you outside the ones who find you by looking on the platform. But students who are searching for you directly, let your account manager know. We can definitely get this information for you, probably even get it for you, a bit of a reference about where you're sitting in your sector as well. We'd love to keep doing that actually on today's call, but obviously it's a lot to get through, so I'll throw back to Grant. But yeah, get in touch if you've got any questions about that part.
Thanks, Sam. And hopefully my microphone's a bit better. Thanks, Christy, for calling that out. So hopefully it's coming through clearly. So the next section that I'm going to be covering off is the search trends, in particular by study field. So as you can see here, so this is basically taking it to proportion. So these are percentages, which is on the left-hand side, and then that based on what the student's studying. So for example, business, you can see that there's actually been a decrease in the number of business students actually searching for jobs this year, but that's in proportion to all student searches. So as we saw in previous slide with the application data, business students are applying for more jobs and searching for more jobs, but by proportion against all other degrees, they're actually searching for fewer jobs in comparison to, say, IT, which is up considerably. The IT students are searching for far more jobs than they were in 22 and 23. If we have a look at the search trends by study field and gender, it's pretty interesting. So you can kind of see here that so that around for engineering and mathematics students, for example, 23% of engineering students are female, whereas 77% are male. So no shock there, because again, there's no shock here because basically this data somewhat matches back to the graduation data that we see in the Department of Education skills and employment data, which shows the total number of students by gender that are graduating year on year. We do have a higher proportion of IT students, female IT students, I should say, looking for grad jobs on Prospel than the broader data. So that's 34% female IT students versus 66% IT males are looking on the platform for work. We do track non-binary and other. We do give that option to students as well, so you can see that there in the line. So creative arts, general skills and pathways, and a couple other degrees are identifying as either other or not and binary. If we take a look at where business students in particular are applying for, so again, no real surprise here that they're applying for accounting and advisory jobs, jobs in the accounting advisory sector. And then as we move down, business and financial services is again a little bit more popular than last year. Technology is down a little bit. We'll see this in a couple of the slides here, that tech is a little bit less popular than last year, probably to do with, we'll touch on this a little bit later on, but to do with the economic climate and a few tech employers recruiting fewer grads this year and last year. Similarly with IT and computer science students. So tech's a little, when I say a little bit down, it's like a small percentile. It's still 21%. It's a little bit further down. I think it's like 21.7% of students were applying for tech jobs. IT students were applying for tech jobs in 2023 compared to 2024, where it was like 21% flat. But they're applying for more jobs in the accounting and advisory sector. Mining, again, is more popular. This was a trend in 2023 as well. Mining, oil and gas kind of kicked back in, and more students were applying for work in that sector than in previous years. Government as well has seen a bit of a bounce back. So again, in 2023, we saw a little bit of a drop back in the public service sector. Fewer students were applying for work in that sector. That's kind of rejuvenated a little bit, and that's up to like a percentage popularity of 9% in 2024. If we take a look at engineering and mathematics students, where they're applying for work, again, no real surprises in terms of the most popular sectors. So mining, oil and gas, engineering, consulting, and then a little bit surprising from there. So accounting and advisory is up to 11%, of total proportion of where engineering students are applying for. Again, there's a lot of jobs in the accounting advisory sector. So, for example, the big four accounting firms like KPMG and EY and Co, they'll recruit from. They've got a particular focus on recruiting STEM students for their consulting practices and a number of other sectors. So, with that in mind, there's been an increase in that popularity of engineering students applying for that sector. And then that's closely followed by construction and technology, again, a little bit down from previous years. And finally, where are law students applying? So we can see that government and public service is actually the most popular sector at the moment. However, again, it's good to caveat this data saying that clerkships aren't open yet for applications, and they don't open to around July. So this will look a lot different later in the year. And for any of our law firm friends that are online today, if you would like a snapshot of this data a little bit later on in the year, we obviously reach out to your account manager, as Sam said, and we can provide that to you in due course. Also note that we haven't included degrees such as property, science, health, etc. We do have that data. We just, in the interest of time and covering off everything, all the goodies that we're covering off today, we don't. We've put that in the appendix. But feel free to reach out to your account manager, and of course we can share that with more granular data with you on those degrees. Sam, can I hand over to you for what employers are doing?
Sure can. Awesome. Yeah, let's take a bit of a look at everyone in this webinar, most of the people in the webinar, and what you've been posting this year. So some interesting trends. Firstly, looking at what type of jobs are you posting? Once again, for the first 5 months of the year, the most popular type of job that we've seen on the platform is graduate jobs. No big surprise. Majority of you are recruiting for your grad jobs in the start of the year, particularly around February and March, as we'll see in a second. And interestingly, we've seen a slight dip in, I think that actually the title there is incorrect. We're actually seeing a slight dip, not increase in the number, well, the proportion is what's worth noting. It's not necessarily the there's fewer internships, but then in terms of the proportion of roles on our platform, if it's 10, 7.5 are grad jobs and 2.5 are internships. Whereas when we'll look at the actual breakdown in a second, we'll actually notice that by opening month, the splits is definitely up. And again, in terms of the data we're showing on this page here, this is graduate jobs and any job post platform, graduate jobs, internships, etc. By the month that job opened. So if you open your campaign on the 15th of February and you hired 100 students, your data is included in the February trend. So you might be actually an employer who recruits 12 months of the year. Okay, pick on KPMG. They're recruiting, got jobs open for a long period of time, right? If you opened in February, your data gets included in February, which is why I think you see such a big jump in February. I think part of that's also to do with the fact why we're seeing a lot opening earlier this year, whereas last year was much more consistent, right? Grads and February and March, pretty much the same. Obviously, we had Easter at the end of March this year, strangely. And so I think we did notice a lot of campaigns push their campaign a little bit earlier rather than opening in March or even in April, right? Hence why I think we're seeing such a drop in April open dates. That Easter period's really mucked up the agendas a little bit. Good news is Easter's a bit later next year, so hopefully we can go back to a bit of a more normal February, March. May openings are up as well. And again, this is a bit of a split. So this is all jobs. If I go specifically to grads versus interns as well, we will see the grad, in terms of grad roles, we've seen again, applications are up, but that split's a bit more even in terms of grad February to March, very, very similar numbers overall. April's definitely down to almost half compared to last year. And so that's what we're sort of saying, just shifting in campaigns for the most part. In terms of overall volume, it's remained relatively, I think we're a little bit up in terms of the number of vacancies on our platform, interestingly. Even though there's been a lot more noise, we'll get to in a second, about market being quieter and people reducing numbers. We actually haven't seen that trend ourselves in terms of the vacancies you're listing on our platform. I think it also helps that we've had a wider pool of employers recruiting on our platform this year, a lot more varied size organizations too, not just the main players. But vacancy numbers remain pretty consistent from a grad perspective. And then if we look at internships, again, that's what I mean when I say, although the proportion of internships is down, we have seen more internships listed on the platform. We can sort of see February's up, March is up, April's up, May is up, even January up in terms of vacancy numbers for internships, which is good news for students. As we've already seen, there's a lot more interest in those types of roles. So now to see there's more vacancies opening up. And finally, it's actually just been added. This is a great slide. Vacancy numbers by industry sectors, interesting. Government out in front in terms of vacancy numbers, followed by accounting, engineering, consulting, tech, interestingly enough. Well, actually, I think what we might do is we might actually get this for you year on year as well, because I think that will be interesting. We don't have it right now, but we'll get this for year on year data for the webinar slides, post it as well, which should be good to see. But the big four, government, accounting, engineering, consulting, tech, mining up there as well. Banks are up there, but they're all a bit of a diverse mix of vacancies per sector. That's enough from me. I'll throw back to you now, Grant, in terms of what's up next. Where do they want to work?
Yeah, where do students want to work? So let's dive straight into it. So, and this is by regional location. So as you can see, there's more Victorian students that are actually looking for jobs this year in comparison to last year. I mean, there's no surprises again, like New South Wales, Victoria, the highest population dense areas in the country. So therefore, naturally, there's more students looking for jobs there. It's also where a high proportion of universities are as well. But then dropping down so as I said, Victoria is up significantly in comparison to last year. New South Wales a little bit down, but not sizable really. Queensland's an interesting one, that there's fewer students in Queensland actually actively looking for jobs this year in comparison to, well, 2023 and also 22. Um, but again, this data somewhat mirrors overall what students are doing in these, like the total proportion of students in these different locations. Now, what's interesting is if we jump across to the next slide, well, there's a couple of things to touch on here. One is remote work. You can see the little blue bubble down the right-hand side there. Is that remote work is becoming less desirable amongst grads. So in 2022, actually 2021 through COVID, we launched a remote location filter. So it would enable students to, if they want to work remotely or if they want to keep that option open rather, they had the ability to search for jobs that hired remotely. That was really popular in 22. Again, really popular in 2023, but it's really dialed back in 2024. So it kind of talks to and I've heard this at AG roundtables and that there's kind of a desire for grads to kind of go back into the office and congregate with their peers. So remote work's becoming a little bit less desirable. But yeah, it'll be really, really interesting to track that over the years. ACT. So whilst there were fewer students searching, in my previous slide, there was fewer students searching for jobs from the ACT this year. There was actually an increase in the number of students who actually want to work in the ACT. So this, so let's say, for example, if it's a student in Melbourne or Perth or wherever it might be across the country, and they're searching for a job in Canberra, actually open to working in Canberra. So it's becoming more popular, and that's kind of in line with what we're talking about earlier, with the increase in students wanting to work in the public sector this year compared with previous years. And similarly with Queensland. So again, on the previous slide where I spoke about that there were fewer students searching from Queensland for work, we can actually see that there's an increase in students wanting to work in Queensland compared with last year. Look, overall, most locations are up as a result of overall applications being up as well across the board, and it's kind of taken away from the remote work that fewer students are looking for remote jobs compared to previous years. If we take a look at the state by state breakdown, regional roles they're really, really hard to fill, as you all know. We've got a lot of clients that are recruiting in, for example, in Victoria, like Bendigo and Ballarat and Geelong. We know that they're really hard to fill, and this is a breakdown of the students that are actually actively searching for jobs in these, well, whether it's metro area, so Melbourne, or regional area, such as Geelong, Ballarat, and so on. The same thing goes for Western Australia. 99.1% of students are when they're looking for a job in WA, they want to work in Perth over, for example, Albany, Busselton, Pilbara. I know we've got a lot of mining companies recruiting for roles in Pilbara and co, and I know that they're always really struggling to fill those regional roles as well. So this again will come as no surprise. If we take a look at New South Wales, so Sydney is very, very popular. 97.2% of students looking for jobs in New South Wales want to work in Sydney. Newcastle is about 0.9% of searchers overall, and then a little bit less for Central Coast. Wollongong as well actually is quite popular at about 3%. And again, for Queensland, again, no surprises that Brisbane is very, very popular. 92% of students want to work in Brisbane when they're looking for jobs in Queensland. And then that's followed by Gold Coast with 4.1% and Townsville at 1.7%. So again, the trend stacks up there. It's even more stark for our South Australian friends. 99.8% of students want to work in Adelaide versus regional areas. A little bit less in Tasmania. There's a lot of jobs in Hobart, but also in Launceston as well. So that's why it takes the cake at around 10% there. Sam, back to you.
Back to me. All right. And up next, we have got a little bit of insight in terms of what students are looking for in jobs specifically. So for a bit of context, obviously, as a platform where most of our platform is around jobs, we're always looking at the latest insight from students in terms of what they're looking for in a position to help guide you and the like on how best to tailor your job adverts and the like. And we've seen a lot of great work in the last, particularly 12 months, with employers really focusing on the information you put in your job description and the like as well. And so we did a survey quite recently to our student audience, asking them, when you're searching, we did two parts of the survey, but we did the first part, we asked them, when searching for an internship or a graduate job, please select which of the following factors are most important to you. The first and most important one was location. I mean, not a big shock. Every student pretty much said, yep, I need to know where the job is. Makes a lot of sense. In terms of second, I think this is really interesting because this is something as a sector we are admittedly quite poor at. The second most important thing that students selected in terms of what they want to hear from an employer, when they're searching for jobs, is when they'll hear back from you. And I know it's hard, obviously, because some of the processes are quite long. They're constantly changing. Maybe a hiring manager says they can't come to an assessment center, so you've got to change things around a little bit. Interviews get dragged out. Team members sick. Look, it's tough, right, to get an exact date and all this sort of stuff. But I think we can be better at giving at least some kind of indication to students about when the timing of your selection process and all that, because the second most important factor to them when they're looking and applying for jobs. In terms of up next, this one's not a big shock, particularly inflation and how conscious everyone is, but particularly Gen Z coming out of uni with a great deal of debt, probably been working for chips, surviving off noodles the whole time as well. They're ready to obviously earn money and hopefully, fingers crossed, buy a house at some point, right? So salary and employee benefits, number 3 in terms of what they're looking for as well. And that's something we've seen multiple reports. We reported on it a little bit last year as well, but as an ongoing trend, it's definitely jumping up and up in terms of what students are looking for. And that's directly from the students themselves. Another important factor, I mean, we make you do this, so this is good, but when does it open? When does the job open? When your application's open? When your application's closed? When are they actually starting their job? All super, started in February 2025. They're starting next week. Obviously quite important to the student as well. So again, something that we ask for in all our job adverts. I think most jobs boards do too, so keep doing that. And probably if you don't put that on your own website, I think that sometimes I see that when employer websites, you don't actually explicitly say open and closed date of jobs, probably because your ATS doesn't give that functionality, right? But I'm putting that in there. And last but not least, career progression. Again, we know Gen Z really have quite, as are many generations, but Gen Z in particular, really want to understand how their first job, what sort of pathway it's going to be putting them on, what they're going to be earning, of course, but they want to grow, they want to improve, they want to see where your position will take them. So focusing on that in your job description, super important. It's interesting that there's 3 things in here that you kind of don't have as, they're just sort of ingrained into the job: location, open and close date. Salary, I assume, it's kind of set in advance, right, by the team. The career progression and when you're going to hear back from them, that's something you control. That's in the job description. If you don't already have that front and center, I'd be looking and reviewing your job adverts for next year. On the flip side, so what were you looking for? What are you searching for? How important is it? We also asked them, when you're reading a job description, what of the following, we gave them a whole bunch of different options, rate the things that would stop you from applying to that job. First one, not a big surprise. I realize I am not eligible, whether by degree, work rights, probably a big thing, as well as we are quite aware that there's many jobs that are, for a variety of reasons, are restricted to their work for, right? And understandably so. So eligibility, probably the biggest thing that will stop them applying. Makes sense. Number 2, the job description doesn't describe what I'll be doing. Again, probably one of the things that I think we've improved at as a sector, but something that we continue to need to focus on. What are they doing? What's the role? I can you know, consultant, right? Well, what does that mean day to day? Most of these grads have never worked the lick of professional experience at all, right? What am I doing day to day? And don't make it fluffy. Analyze policy and give them some tangible examples of what the work is. Speaking of, number 3, I can't find relevant information in the job description, whether it's job description, I'm sure, whether it's direct career progression, salaries, and sort of things that we saw on previous page that are important to them. There's just not that there's too much data. Sometimes it's like they need to find the relevant stuff. So are you being succinct with the information provided? Is it easy to spot, maybe dot points and the like, the key tidbits? Well, back to this previous slide, when they'll hear back from them, eligibility, what I'm doing, how easy is it to read that information? Do you even include it in your job descriptions? That's obviously quite important to them. Again, back to timing. The flip side, I say, put your timings in there, but obviously the length of your application process, that's a big factor. So control what you can control, particularly the application form. How much of the information you're collecting is actually useful, how much of it scares candidates off. I've got use this anecdotally, but my brother and his partner went through a lot of job application process in the last year. Some of the application forms that we're telling you about, we're understandably asked certain things, but hearing the candidates' feedback on the other end of the spectrum, it's quite interesting to see how they react to information that we actually take for granted as being standard. And finally, I don't think I'll be accepted. Maybe the standards are too high. Maybe it doesn't sound like I'm a good fit for the role. So yeah, just be mindful of that, particularly I think this is particularly good to be aware of for if you're trying to attract candidates who might not necessarily consider themselves typically a great fit, maybe neurodiverse candidates, for example, the preconceived sort of ideas about you might accept. Maybe it might be a female entering traditionally male industry or vice versa as well. So just be really aware of this. What are you doing to make it seem like it's not for them when they might actually be the right candidate? It's really important. But yeah, that's a little bit about what the students are saying. We will be doing some more surveys, as already mentioned, on student sentiments in the market too, which we will have for you later in this year, most likely at the AAG conference actually, so keep an eye out for that. That's a bit of a snapshot about what students are seeing. So now we want to jump into a bit of an open forum as well, this component, because in terms of, we want to have a bit of an open discussion. Why are we seeing these trends? Why are we seeing applications up? Searching for jobs up so much, and what is going on in the market this year? And admittedly, we've got some working theories, but I wouldn't say we've got the full picture, right? So in terms of a couple of ideas that we have, Grant, there's probably a couple of things that we think make a bit of sense in terms of why students might be doing the way they're doing. Firstly, why applications up? Well, I think we've spent the last 2 years as a industry making job applications a little bit easier, and that's been coupled with the fact that things like ChatGPT have come out. I think Grant, you did a big presentation with Lou from Brightworks, Type Solutions, and Sarah from Type Solutions last year, talking about AI. And I'm not sure if anyone's had any experiences with that this year, but anecdotally, hearing from a few of you, it does sound like there's been a lot of use of it in your applications.
Absolutely. It just makes it a lot easier for students to and we're seeing and hearing this a lot, right? Like we recently launched, or maybe when I say recently, maybe 2 or 3 months ago, the Prospal student forum. So students can jump on. It's kind of like a whirlpool for grads. And we're kind of seeing that a lot of students are saying in that forum, I was reading one the other day, that they're using ChatGPT to plug in. I think the question was tips and tricks on how to customize my CV for multiple sectors or there or thereabouts. And one of the comments was a student said, look, just go straight to ChatGPT, copy and paste your CV, and and then just prompt it to ask or prompt it to customize it for the engineering consulting sector, or for this particular employer. So with the use of AI, it's going to make it so much easier for students to apply for jobs, and not even just in terms of searching for jobs, but just also the customization of their CV and resume and cover letter, most importantly as well. And you would have seen this a lot in the application forms, that when you ask a question on, I know I heard this from a few clients, I won't name them, but they mentioned that it was like, please describe X company and tell us a little bit about what we do and why you want to apply. And this particular employer mentioned to me that they had, out of their thousands of applications, they had a significant number of them where that question, or that answer rather to that question, was very, very similar. And it was basically, if you type that into ChatGPT and said, please answer this question for me, it was word for word what ChatGPT spat out. So just be conscious of it, but it's something that's obviously increased the number of, or made it more accessible for students to apply for jobs. And then secondly is the economic downturn. Sam, do you want to start off talking to this, or do you want me to...
I think we've all seen it, right? There's been a lot of noise in the media everywhere about there's inflation, and then now it's economic downturn. Are we on the brink of recession? And I think students are aware of this, right? They're, particularly Gen Z, they're digital nomads. They are living and breathing this constant negative sort of attention about, there's not going to be enough jobs as they're popping out. Tech employers are not hiring as much anymore, or consulting employers are cutting back on their grad numbers, and all this sort of noise out there, right? And rightly or wrongly, right? I think it's just what they're seeing is just a lot of noise about the market being worse. Couple that with, inflation pressures going up. I'm sure there's probably a few of them who are, I'm not sure how much, domestic travel's taking a bit of, international travel's taking a bit of a hit from a student perspective as well. Something to check with the ABS, but I'm sure fewer students are maybe electing to take a gap year this year as much as in previous years, and prioritizing looking for jobs just seems to be much higher on everyone's radar as well. Keep blame them. Another theory is as well that sort of add to the slides, but I was doing some research earlier, and the number of international students who have gone from a student visa to a graduate visa is also at all-time highs as well, on the back of the end of last year as well, all-time highs. And so I wouldn't be shocked to have seen, as we've gotten more of those students who've come into the country in the last few years post-COVID and are now progressing from a student visa onto a graduate visa, there's just an influx of that cohort who are looking for jobs. And as we are aware, international students do typically apply for jobs at a higher rate as well, driven primarily because there are fewer jobs available to them as well. So again, another working theory. Open to any other thoughts in the chat at all about what might be causing it.
Any other thoughts, pop them in the chat, and we'll get to them. We're going to share some tips in a moment. I just looked at the time, and we're as always, and predictably, Sam, we are running out of time. But feel free to pop some questions in the chat and discuss amongst yourself if there's any other theories that you're hearing, in terms of student sentiment in the market as well. So, as promised, tips. Sam, I think
I'll take them here. Yeah. So a few tips. We've got a couple to run through. So firstly, and we gave this tip last year, and I think it's even more noticeable this year, consider when you're recruiting, right? We've seen, although there's still peak applications are still in March, in terms of when students are searching, we can sort of see that those numbers are crazy. Like January, the number of students searching for jobs in January, all-time highs. Like, about half that of March, the number of job searches being made, but it's still a massive volume. So there's stacks of students looking in any given month. We've seen that start the year, and we expect that for the remainder of the year as well, it will continue to be at all-time highs. It's always, in terms of those, obviously the number of jobs that are live in March too. There's a lot of noise in March, right? We saw most of the jobs were opening in February and March, and so is recruiting in that month the most optimal decision to make? I think we've always done it for the most part. We've seen more employers who are spreading out the recruitment process or maybe pushing back into the August period, and I definitely think, particularly if we're seeing a higher rate of applications for not a great deal more students coming out of the market, similar number of jobs out there too. Renegs are going to be a massive issue this year. And so having a lengthy period between offer and start is probably also not the best thing, right? And so I would be looking at, is March the best time for me to recruit? Because I personally, I don't think that is the case these days. It's going to be live, but it's just so much opportunity outside of that as well when there's less competition. Second tip, again, we've said this once or twice or before, but I mean, speak their language, right? Easier said than done, of course. But I'd be looking to get your help from your Gen Z grads and employees. How much is our content, whether it be videos or our job description, how much is it actually appealing to grads? Is it talking to their key values and things like that? And we've called this job out here before, the PM&C role. They talk a lot to like utilizing your data degree to help address cost of living and climate change. Two big things we know Gen Z are keen on, right? And so how does my job advert make the work that they can do sound like it makes impact and is interesting and is just simple to understand? How much am I looking to lean into the TikTok style content of short form videos, breaking down the barriers, a bit more authenticity, whether in my job advert or my general marketing as well. We've definitely seen from the adverts that the TikTok content we've created this year, and from the ones that I've heard from other employers have delved into the space themselves personally, there's a lot of interest in this sort of content. One done right and with authenticity. So speak their language, try new things in terms of how you describe your job and your brand to students. Another tip, it goes without saying, but make it easier to apply, right? Like if you're a student and you're on a external jobs board, no matter what that jobs board is, when you click on that apply now button, it's obviously a big, important button, right? We want to go from the job description on your marketing websites, jobs boards like Prosper, back into your job description. It should be super simple for them to start their application. If you send them on a roundabout, if they send them from one website to another website and onto a third website and maybe into a separate platform and things like that, and you're not just sending them straight into either your grad page with the job description then and there, or ideally even just into the ATS, right? Like you're going to lose them. We know that from just internet searches in general, right? You optimize that process, reduce the clicks, and make sure it's quite obvious that they're applying to you via your website, obviously. Obviously, another big thing, hopefully you're all doing this, but track your ROI as well, particularly because I'm sure many of us are feeling the budgets are a bit tighter this year in comparison to previous years. Everyone's a little bit nervous about the market and things like that. So I think it's a really good reminder to make sure you're reviewing how you're tracking your data. If you've got your digital platforms, like your Prosper, make sure you've got click trackers on that information. If you don't know how to do that, get in touch with your account manager, we'll point you in the right direction. But click trackers on all your external link providers back to your website. If you're advertising on Prosper, and hopefully the majority of you are, utilize your applicants tab. We collect every student who we send your way. The names and the details are found in the applicants tab, right? As long as they've opted into that service and designed a privacy policy, all right? So use that applicants tab. It helps you to track the ROI from a Prosper perspective. You should also obviously continue still asking your students, where did you hear about this opportunity in your application form? That qualitative feedback should be used in conjunction with your click trackers because it is always quite interesting, right? You should make sure you give the option to make it multi-select as well, and I'd be removing any option to say your website. Like you should also avoid tracking your inbounds from your website. You shouldn't really be saying, where'd you hear about your website? They've obviously come from somewhere else, firstly. Like they're not going to just wake up and go, I'm going to go to the website. They're going to hear about you somewhere. There's something that shaped their opinion. So just track that. Like get rid of that component. Yeah, ensure it's multi-select because there might be a few things that solve them on coming to you. Like we know that it's not typically just one touch point. It sells the students multiple. If you're going to events as well, we know there's been a lot more increase in careers fairs recently too, which is fantastic. Make sure you're just tracking that. Like, is that actually converting into applications? Have like a unique QR code or something like that, because again, with budgets tight, just make sure your money's going to where it actually is working for you. But also at the same time, benchmark all those stats to the market as well. Like, am I too heavily reliant on one particular source, my website or something like that, risk of all else? Like, see how you're tracking both the total application proportion, your source of channels, etc. What's happening across the wider space as well. One final thing, if you haven't already, is obviously we changed our name from Grad Australia to Prosper in the last 12 months. Make sure that where you hear about this, you put us down as Prosper. That's our student brand these days. So just a bit of a reminder for anyone who might have forgotten to do that last 12 months. ROI, that's a bit. And then also make sure, look to improve your jobs, right? As was already sort of said, speak their language. Look to some winning roles on our platform. Account manager can help you with this, but review the sort of way you're describing your job advert. So I've got two examples of some high converting jobs on our platform so far this year. And when we say conversion, we mean when a student sees your job, they view it, at what proportion, then go on to apply. Make sure to only include ones with a minimum of 1,000 views, for example, so not like 5 views and 2 apply. How good's that conversion rate? But here's a great example, Canva. A couple of things that do quite well. Well, one, it's Canva. Cool brand. Who doesn't want to work for Canva? So that helps. You don't have a Canva brand, maybe you do to grow that. They're quite clearly described from flexible work. Welcome Sydney and Melbourne, or anywhere remote in Australia and New Zealand. It's pretty cool. It opens up the opportunity. I like how they start their opening as well. Hey, g'day, thanks for stopping by. It's a bit difficult. And they're trying to, again, Gen Zify how they describe it to students, right? They're not stock standard text. High salary helps, okay? That's pretty good. And also open dates, right? They're recruiting outside of that key period, end of April into May. That's fantastic. For those who aren't Canva, another great example. So John Holland, I'm sure Ainsley's on the call, but fantastic opportunity here. Then IT graduate program, 25% conversion rate. Again, it's still a strong graduate brand. They're the first in their sector, and it's Prosper's top 100. We've got some great graduate reviews. Again, a high salary, which probably helps. But they're really great sort of starting lines in their job description. What our 2-year graduate program offers? Straight at the back, what's in it for you? Total remuneration of X and great learning development journey, et cetera, as well. So the idea is review your language, review your brand, get your account managers help with that sort of stuff as well. They're very happy to provide tailored advice to your job description from a Gen Z perspective, and also review how you're searching and what your brand is, how the strength of your brand currently as well. But review your job adverts. It's and particularly ask your account manager how your jobs conversion rates were this year as well. Should ideally be aiming for upwards of 5 to 10%. Finally, in terms of tip, I'm conscious of time, so we'll promise we're about to wrap up, and we'll get to the prizes. Boost your jobs. If you're going to be recruiting peak periods of time, particularly in that March, February period of time, where we have seen most jobs are recruiting, make sure your job's visible. Look through your subscription tier if you were advertising if possible. Look to get involved in the job ranking boost as well. Do whatever you can to go up those pages. We know that fewer and fewer students go from page 1 to page 2 to page 3 to page 4. So if you're middle of the pack in terms of job searches, there might be, again, 1,000 job opened to your ideal candidate, like business students, for example, in the middle of March. Like if you're job 500 in that list, particularly if you're hard to recruit roles, like if you have particular roles you're really struggling with, boost it, get it seen, because even though lots of students are making lots of applications, there are still some positions that are tough to recruit for, and it's just a matter of just getting it seen. So, with your Prosper stuff, just push it up, boost it. I think that's the end of our tips. Anything else you wanted to add, Grant, from a tip perspective, or?
No, not in particular. I think just sort of amplifying on that last point is do what you can to boost your job up the rankings. So there's kind of the free way, which is to boost your job and by making it more relevant to students, to the right type of students. But
Hence
also
the
there's
conversion.
yeah, exactly. Um, or there's um, the comfort of mind per se, where you can just boost your job and put a little bit of budget towards it to push it up the job board as well. But yeah, again, we kind of encourage you to reach out to your account manager, set up a session with them to help you understand where your jobs are typically ranking and how you can sort of get that visibility that you need to get the applications and hires that you want. Just signing before we jump into prizes, we should definitely jump into that because we're running a little bit over. But a reminder, if for any for any employer that doesn't work with Possible, we've got the opportunity for you to post a job for free on the Possible network. So just scan that QR code to get started there. And a reminder, if you are a client and you'd like more information about this presentation, or even just a boutique presentation for your industry or your specific company, feel free to reach out again to your account manager and they'll be more than willing and able to assist. We probably don't have that much time for Q&A.
We've done Q&A throughout as well.
I've been busily trying to answer the questions in the chat. So we're going to do a little giveaway. Now, where is my screen? So on this monitor, I've got the 206 student or registrations for today. So it's a very colorful wheel that I've got. So I'm going to spin that now. I don't know if you can actually hear the sound, which is a bit unfortunate. And the winner is, thanks, Sam, is Annika Kataria. Is Annika still with us? Let's have a quick look. If so, speak now.
Doesn't look like it, I don't think.
I'm just searching for no. All right, should we spin again? Is everyone saying redraw in the chat? All right. What about Roma Solomon? Is Roma on the call with us? Oh, I don't think so. I can't see her in the attendees. Redraw?
Lots more redraws.
More redraws. I'm going to actually try and put the sound on so it's a little bit more exciting for you. Tran Nugent. Is Tran on the call?
I think I see Tran Ewan. Yeah. Tran? Yeah, there we go.
Nice.
Woo!
Great work, Tran. So you're the first prize. What's the first prize, Sam?
First of two. But both prize winners get the same thing. You're gonna get a QR. You're gonna get a link after the call where you get to choose. Actually, I think if you go to the next slide, Grant, you get a list of things you can choose from in terms of there's some glass of wine. And there's a bunch of other things here too, but Rebel Sports voucher potentially, or I think it's a gin thing too, like maybe a aperitif sort of thing. So a bunch of cool things. That's two people get a prize. So we've got Trans for number one, and hopefully this one doesn't take as long.
Number two. We're spinning. Again, I'm trying to figure out how to share my sound. All right. It is Jack Garrett. Jack, you still with us? Let's have a look. I don't think so. That sounds like a redraw.
But it does look like one of our earlier winners, Annika, has actually rejoined us.
Really controversial. What do you think? I think that feels like it's fair.
I think that's fair. She was our first prize draw, so
she's got the word up from one of her colleagues to jump back on the call. That's amazing.
Yeah. We'll allow it.
Annika, if you just rejoined us, you're the second winner as well. So well done. You're lucky the Irish jumping back on. We'll
be in touch with a link where you can choose what you want out of a list of options, including the four on the screen. Um, Actually, oh, there's even more prizes than just what was on the screen as well, but that's okay. We'll send you a link with some prizes to win. So thanks to our two lucky winners. If anyone does have any questions they want to stick around, I mean, I don't urgently run immediately, but if not, we'll wrap it up there, I reckon. Grant?
Thanks. Yeah, thanks everyone. Thanks for all your engagement and questions. Again, a reminder, I'll pop this in the chat, but if you're after the slides or the recording, that will be sent. Just give us a couple of days to get that email out to you, along with the nice jazzed up recording. And yeah, thanks for all your engagement and questions, and your long time support as well, at Prosperable, for all those clients out there. Anything else to add, Sam?
No, I
See
think
if
that's
there's
it.
some questions. Just a lot of thanks. Is there any data on people with a disability getting an internship? Good question.
Unfortunately,
Unfortunately, not.
students with disability, we've got to be obviously in terms of what we collect in terms of student details. Most of it is obviously as part of when they create a profile with us. We're very right now. There's an option for students to add in disability into their profile. It's something that we are exploring at the moment. Just something obviously we've got to be very careful with. That particularly obviously. What's the word I'm looking for? But sensitive data, Indigenous, ethnicity, disability. We just got to be really careful with that. But it's something we're definitely keen to explore into, and it's definitely a space that we want to see a higher degree of focus on from the market. I think it's the sector we're pretty good at it, but like there's still a lot more work to go in terms of that space. In terms of getting the internship, it's a good question. Like versus like how many applying and the like. That might be something that's available actually. In terms of particularly from the AAG, in terms of people who've been hired. So leave that one with us if that's all right, Jonathan. Or might actually look into it for you so we can follow up some of that data after the call.
Nice one. Doesn't look like there's. Oh, one from Matt. Do we know the success rates versus the length of internship? The success rates versus the length of internship. I'd probably need to understand a little bit more. So we're looking for if the internships, for example, 12 weeks, are they more successful to get hired? I'd imagine that's your question, Matt. If so, we don't have that data on hand. Yes, versus 6 months, for example. Yeah, we don't have that data on hand, but it'll be something very, very interesting for us to delve into for sure. Maybe we can include that those type of questions in our student survey at some point, Sam. Like even if you have done an internship over X amount of weeks, did you land a job or something to that effect? Also wonder if AG have got something like that on available. Sorry we couldn't help you too much there, Matt. Cool. I think that's it in terms of questions. Should we wrap up, Sam?
I think so. Perfect.
Thanks, everyone.
Awesome. Thanks so much for your time today, everyone, and see you at the next one.